Manhattan Neighborhood Network, in partnership with the League of Women Voters of New York and Gotham Gazette, is pleased to welcome you to a debate among candidates running to fill the seat in the New York State Assembly District 74. I'm Ben Max, Executive Editor of Gotham Gazette. District 74 in the Assembly is on the east side of Manhattan and stretches from East Houston Street through the East Village, including Stuyvesant Town, to just north of the United Nations. The Assembly seat has been vacant since December, when Brian Kavanaugh resigned and was sworn in as a state senator. The special election is open to all who are registered to vote and live in Assembly District 74. There is no primary. The vote is April 24th. There are 4 candidates here with us. Starting from my left, we have the Republican candidate, Brian Cooper, the Democratic and Working Families candidate, Harvey Epstein, the Green Party candidate, Adrienne Craig Williams, and the Reform Party candidate, Juan Pagan. Each candidate will answer several rounds of questions with 1-minute responses and 30-second rebuttals when needed. Each candidate will also have time at the end for a 1-minute closing statement. So thank you all for being here, and Mr. Pagan, we're going to start with you. The same question will go around to everybody. But Mr. Pagan, how would you describe, for those that might not know it particularly well, what is the job of a state assembly member? How do you describe what the responsibilities are? Go ahead.
The primary responsibility is to understand the people in his district, to have a connection with the people, to have endured what the people in his district have been going through. That's the first element. Without that, to legislate laws or to repeal laws or to amend laws, it's those 3 elements now are important. But if you don't know the people, if you don't know what's been going on in your district, to write new laws, or as I said, to repeal ones that are not working or actually hurting the people, or to amend laws to make them work better, you have to have a true understanding of what's going on in your community, in your district. And the fact that I lived there for 62 years, which is my age, been there all my life, it's ingrained within me. So the important element of being a state legislator is to legislate laws that actually work for the people, to legislate laws that reflect what the people are crying out about. And so that is my brief explanation of what a lawmaker should be in the state.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Cooper, how do you describe the job of an assembly member?
Well, hands-on experience I learned from Brian Kavanaugh and via Steve Sanders. And you're an ambassador. That's what you are. You're an ambassador representing your district. You go up to Albany representing the people. And how they went about it, well, I'm going to go about it, is going to community board meetings, police community council meetings, and also tenant association meetings. Just knowing, learning what's going on. I mean, yeah, people are rambunctious, but that's fine. Write it down. Hey, I got you. I'm gonna go up to Albany, and that's what you are an ambassador. You represent that district of who you are and what you learn, and that's it. That is all.
Mr. Epstein, how do you define the role of the assembly member?
So I've defined it in a couple of ways. One is to explain what we do in Albany, to talk to people about the House of Representatives, have once part of Congress and the Senate, where in Albany, the Assembly is the House of Representatives for Congress, and the Senate is the Senate. So people don't understand that there's 2 bodies in Albany as well, and we pass laws that the governor can sign and veto. But the more critical piece of what a state representative is to be a community organizer and understand the needs of the community and build leaders in our neighborhood and make a difference in the lives of New Yorkers.
Thank you. And Ms. Craig Williams?
Yes, so everyone else has said pretty good things. I love the word ambassador. The assembly member represents the community in Albany and represents Albany in the community, writes laws, and works to serve the people and be accountable to the people.
Okay, so we're going to actually start right back with you, Ms. Craig Williams, on the second question, and then we'll come around and we'll give everybody a chance to start and end and be in the middle as we go here throughout the debate. So the second part to the opening question really is, how are you then qualified to fill that role? What makes you the right choice to fill this seat?
Right, so I'm the right choice because I am not a part of the regular political parties. I'm a Green Party candidate, which means I'm not answerable to machine politics or big corporations or any kind of track that a party might want to put me on. So I can be actually responsive to the people and listen to them without any kind of agenda that's coming from above me or
Just to follow up a little bit on that, when you identify yourself as a member of the Green Party, just generally speaking, what do you want people to know that means? I mean, there are a lot of people, obviously, who have a sense of the Green Party, probably often associated with environmentalism, but how do you describe it? What do you, in brief, want people to know that means?
So the Green Party, number one, is the party of peace. It's an anti-war party, anti-violence party. It's pro-environmentalism, which would be green economy, so jobs based on restoring infrastructure to be climate change resilient. And it doesn't take money from corporations, and it's grassroots, which is actually hard to understand if you're not part of it. So all of the instructions, as it were, for a party representative would come from below, from the people in the district.
Thank you. Mr. Pagan, how do you consider yourself qualified for this position of assembly member, other than your 62 years in the district, as you mentioned?
Okay. Yeah. Well, Adrienne kind of hit an element of it. I'm not beholden to anyone, and the fact that there's two Democrats here, it's really a face-off between the Democrats here, because the prevailing party in our district are over 68,000 registered Democrats. And the point I want to make with that, why I'm more qualified than this guy here, is because 17 members of a committee put him here in this chair. The Reform Party put me here in this seat. Mind you, I'm a Democrat, a registered Democrat all my life, all right? And the reason for that is because the people deserve a choice. As I said, the prevailing party in our district are Democrats. So it was really a scheme. I want to make my point why I'm the better qualified candidate. The scheme of the political machine's scheme, the party leaders choosing by way of committee county votes. For example, we're trying to fill Brian Kavanaugh's seat, all right? He abandoned his post to go to take the Senate seat. Brian Kavanaugh was voted by 17 members of a committee, all right, versus over 68,000 registered Democrats who live in our district, okay? So what does the county committee do now? They elect this guy here to get him on this panel here, all right? So what's happening here, the machine has robbed, they've done it before, the machine has robbed the opportunity for the people of our district to vote in a primary election.
So I'm going to stop you there,
Yes,
Mr.
yes.
Pagan. You're referring to some of the processes around special elections, and that actually
Yes.
was a question coming
Yes.
up. So we're going to come back to that.
Oh.
But that is your
Okay.
time. So I'm going to move to
Okay.
Mr. Cooper here on what makes you qualified. And Mr. Epstein, I know that he was talking directly about you, but we're about to get to you, so we'll come to you in a moment. Mr.
Okay,
Cooper, what makes you
simple.
qualified?
I represent the Republican Party. I'm proud to be a Republican, and I love being a Republican. I've been a Republican district leader now for 14 years. And I'm also a member of the Police Community Council, and I'm also just graduated from the Emergency Response Team, which is the CERT, Office of Emergency Management. So I'm very well aware of every single part of that district as far as the citizens, Peter Cooper, Stuytown, Lower East Side, Murray Hill, to the city, everything. But I'm also a man that I'm a moderate, and I like working with people on the bipartisan way. And even though that we don't have limited number of Republicans in our district, independents, Democrats, whatever, because we all are part of the district. My campaign is real simple. It's our district, okay? I want to represent you, and I want to represent the people. Regardless of what your party affiliation is. We all have issues that we all know and love about. We all care about the same things. We want to solve the problems, and that's it.
So you will be on the Republican Party line. So
Yes.
what do you say to the many Democrats in the district in terms of why they should vote for you as a Republican, won't you bring more of a Republican lens, even if, as you say, it's a moderate lens, to the job of assembly member? What would you say to those Democrats?
That's right. That's an excellent question, because I know that the political climate right now is very, raw, but it's real simple. I said, listen, okay, even though that I am part of the Republican Party, but I can bring to the table about, an alternative to what the Democrats are doing. Okay, especially in Albany right now, especially with Governor Cuomo right now. Because the thing is, Donald Trump is not on the ticket. Andrew Cuomo is. And that is it.
Okay,
So,
we'll come back a little bit more to what that might mean on specific issues, and also maybe more about Governor Cuomo, since he will be, at least in September and November, on the ballot, but he's not on the ballot in April when this election is happening. Mr. Epstein, first, you can respond to Mr. Pagan as you wish, but also, please, what makes you qualified to fill the job of assembly member?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Really, why I think I'm qualified to be the assembly member is what I've done in our community and around our city to represent the lives of New Yorkers. I've worked on dozens of pieces of legislation, worked with community organizers all over the city to think about what we need to do to improve the lives of regular New Yorkers. I've been a legal services lawyer for almost 25 years, represented thousands of New Yorkers. I've heard their stories, I've heard their struggles, and I've heard how Albany is creating such dysfunction in their lives that they can't improve it. They can't move forward in the way they need to do. And what we need to do is send someone to Albany who has the experience and the qualifications to make a difference for our community and our city and our state. I've done it. I'll continue to do it. I did it when I sat on the Rent Guidelines Board and got a rent freeze. The first one in the 47-year history of the Rent Guidelines did it. I did it when I helped get legislation passed to stop harassment in New York City. I did it when I went to Peter Cooper Village in Stuyvesant Town to talk about tenant harassment and started legal clinics and housing clinics to help protect those tenants from eviction and displacement. And I'll do it when I go to Albany to represent this community in the Assembly.
So let me follow up a little bit on what Mr. Pagan was talking about in terms of the process for getting nominated. You obviously, in special elections, the parties nominate their choice to be on the ballot. There are no primaries. It's not nonpartisan, where you just get on the ballot and that's who voters can vote for. So you were selected by party members, party insiders to be on the ballot. Why was that? And would you be, if you are in the Democratic majority in the Assembly, is it going to be that you would sort of toe the party line? That's some of the concerns that people have sometimes around these special election choices.
So a really good question about the special election process. I know what I said during all parts of the campaign, and I'll continue to say, is what we need to do is change how special elections happen in New York State. New York City has an open primary process for special elections, and we need to do that for Albany elections as well. I've said it from the beginning of this campaign, and I'll continue to say we need to go to Albany, change the laws, because it is smoke room filled process. Yes, there were 200 people who were all Democrats who unanimously put me forward as a Democratic candidate. Also, I'm running on the Working Families Party line. And I'm honored to take those lines, but I also know that it's our obligation to change that system. Just because the laws exist now doesn't mean that's the laws to exist in the future. I think it's our job to see these problems and change them. Like we need to change early voting in New York. It's a problem. We need to change it. There are lots of things we need to change in Albany, and I believe my skills and qualifications allow me to be able to do that.
And just lastly on that, would you, why was it that you were so supported by the Democrats in Manhattan who were making this selection? What is it, how did you get sort of tied with the party? What is it about, how did you build those relationships?
Well, good question about how I got connected to people in the district. I've lived in the district for over 20 years, raised my children in the district, been a parent leader in the district, was a community board chair in the district. I've been deeply involved in our neighborhood and deeply committed to the work that's going on in our community. I've worked with all the local elected officials as well in my job running a legal services office and in my community hat. So people knew me, knew what I've done, knew my qualifications, and they believed in the vision that I had to support our community and talk about community organizing, talk about leadership development, talk about changing the culture of Albany, and they all supported me going forward.
Thank you. So we're going to start with you this time, Mr. Cooper. Let's talk more about the district. What are some of the major issues facing the district? Let's try to limit it maybe to your top three, let's say. Okay. But what are three big issues facing the 74th Assembly District, which, as some have said, and I said in the introduction, covers much of some of the east side of Manhattan. Right. Mr. Cooper, key issues facing the district.
Number one problem right now okay, especially in my neighborhood, in Alphabet City, is in NYCHA housing, okay? My main concern right now is the seniors, okay, and the accessibility of handicap, because there are no handicap accessibility ramps in none of my buildings, from all the way from East Houston all the way to 14th Street down. And it's like, and then all of us, then now the unemployment situation, which is youth unemployment, okay? Workforce One and Henry Street Settlement are currently right now, are on the cusp right now of doing job training programs for youth, for after-school programs. The problem is right now, we're trying to get the word out to the kids right now about what's going on, and that's what I've been doing that for the past couple of months right now, just trying to get the word out as far as, because we don't want our kids out there in the streets, especially now in the summertime now, because it's getting ready to get warm right now. We want them to be constructive and a lot of other things. And also the rents, okay? Now,
We're going to come back on solutions. So I think you gave us 3, and that's
Okay.
about time. So we'll move
Sure.
on to Mr. Epstein.
Sure.
2
Top
or
3
3
issues that are
Sure.
going on in the district.
Yeah.
I think one is affordable housing, not just public housing, but all housing, rent stabilized housing, Mitchell-Lama housing. Second is the MTA, the problems with the L train closing down, the lack of accessible stations when it reopens, the issues of public transit, buses and subways, and how poorly they're being operated. And third is public education, really pushing better public education, funding public education, supporting public education, elementary, middle, high school, and college.
Thank you. Mr. Craig Williams?
Yeah, so I agree with my fellows up here, and also climate change is a big issue in our community, and I think we need long-term solutions, and we need to talk about that because most of our district is in a flood zone, and we are going to have more big storms. This hurricane season is supposed to be worse than last year's, and we need actual climate change resilience plans, and also housing and education are my top 3.
Okay. Mr. Pagan, issues facing the district.
There's so many issues, and it's hard to prioritize them, but I'll put the first 3. I mean, to a parent who has children going to school, their number 1 priority is public education. But let me start with the 3 I have. Number 1 is affordable housing. And I want to target specifically NYCHA, because NYCHA residents are the ones that are suffering the most right now. Not to neglect Mitchell-Lama or Section 8 or the problems that might come up in 2020 with Stuytown and Peter Cooper Village, but NYCHA has been enduring problems for so many years. It's deliberate. NYCHA has been deliberately neglecting the upkeep and the maintenance of our buildings because they have a plan. They want to eventually use that as an excuse. The deterioration of NYCHA, they want to use that as an excuse to then turn it over to private developers. Okay, so it's really a scheme. The ones that are
Sorry, who's the they there?
sorry.
Who has the scheme there?
NYCHA. NYCHA is the one with the scheme. It's called Next Gen. I'll give you a
So
specific
the
name.
NYCHA leadership and
the
their
NYCHA
plan.
leadership.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Well, of course, that includes. I would include also Nida Velasquez, who's our representative congresswoman, who deals with HUD on the issues that has affected NYCHA, especially in our neighborhood. And as I was saying, so NYCHA, affordability in NYCHA, because what's happening is it's the poor and the ones on fixed incomes that are getting squeezed out of NYCHA. And NYCHA was designed to help the poor and those on fixed incomes. My second issue will be the issues on MTA. And my third issue would be the closing of Rikers Island, which it's obvious that it was more of a political, it was more politically motivated, the closing Rikers Island, rather than something to seriously deal with the issues there.
So just briefly on that, and then
yes.
we need to move on.
Yes.
Are you against closing Rikers Island and moving the inmate population to the borough-based facilities?
I would have been against it, but it's already on track.
Okay.
So now we got to take measures. Right, I would have been against it
Okay.
because Rikers it can be repaired there, and they should have emulated. I worked for the state prison system for about 8-9 years, so I'm intimately acquainted with how the prison system works, and I've dealt with ex-offenders, felony offenders, for like 9 years. So I have a lot of experience in dealing with the prison system.
So
and
the
how it
next
works.
question really,
Yes.
and let's just give you a chance to continue on that thought. The next question is, what are a couple of policy proposals that you want to pursue to address those questions, those issues you've identified? So I'll come back around, but since you're talking criminal justice reform,
Yes.
what's something you want to do about it? From your experience, from what you've seen, what is a policy proposal that you would bring to the state legislature?
Well, the number one thing I would do as a state legislator, I will create a committee within the state legislature to deal specifically with the commission report. There was a commission that was created for a plan to close Rikers Island in 10 years, and that way the state will have some control over their decisions. And my primary concern is public safety. That's number one. Of course, I have a concern about treating those that are in custody in a humane manner. And I understand that firsthand. I mean, when I worked for the state prison system, I used to own a business years ago. I hired 4 inmates that were being, 3 were being unconditionally released, 1 was being released on parole. That was my way of giving back to the community. It was a construction, demolition business. And the point I'm making is I understand the need for rehabilitation for these the offenders that are in prisons that are coming out. We need a holistic approach to this issue.
Okay.
And
I'm going to stop you there. We'll come back on something else, but I want to come to Mr. Cooper, either on an issue you identified or something else that came up.
Right.
But what are a couple of things that you want to bring to the legislature to address issues that are central to the district? And I will say, I heard just about everybody, it seems like, agree that affordable housing is clearly a key issue. I'm sure there's others that we can all agree on for the district are issues, but clearly that's one that I think people would be interested in hearing everybody's ideas on. But if there's other things you want to throw in as well, please.
I'm going to piggyback, with Mr. Epstein's about the MTA, the L train, Right now, there is a station being built on 14th Street. Why? Why are you building a brand spanking new station where you could have taken that money and reorganized and rebuilt the existing L train service, like First Avenue, Second Avenue, Third Avenue, And because I was talking to some construction guys, it was like, they're putting accessibility, elevators. Then take that and put it in the old stations and allocate. Why are you spending millions of dollars, just of nothing? I know that you're creating jobs for the construction. That's fine. That's great. But you could have taken that whole resource and rebuilt, reconstruct the entire L service from First Avenue, Second Avenue, Third Avenue. Because now I understand that they're doing another $1 billion renovation for Hurricane Sandy. That's fine. Again, why go through all this construction for nothing when you can just taking all that money and just...
So let me ask you quickly, you identify that problem as either a community member or as the assembly member, which would have more weight behind it. Obviously, you're an elected official. What do you do? How do you, as an assembly member, if you are elected, identify that problem with the MTA? How do you get that addressed?
I would go to the governor and to whoever I can talk to. I say, hey, look, guys, look. I understand the Hurricane Sandy situation was a big problem. I know, I'm in the district. I know exactly what's going on there, from the Brooklyn line to the Manhattan line, things like that. We don't need to waste billions of dollars on brand new spanking projects. Just take that money and revamp, rebuild, reconstruct everything.
So you go right to the top, to the
top,
governor. Okay, got it. Thank you. Mr. Epstein, a policy proposal or two that you would bring to Albany?
I also want to respond to something that Mr. Pagan just said around. First of all, I have to say that I have to really disagree with him about Congresswoman Velasquez. She's been a champion for public housing. She's going to DC fighting for funds. The federal government and the Republican Party in Washington has cut and cut and cut funding for public housing. She's been there pushing for additional funding. I think she's not trying to privatize it. She's trying to protect it and save it, and I really think we should honor the work that she's doing. In relationship to criminal justice reform, I think we have to close Rikers. I've been to Rikers. I've had families have stayed in Rikers. Friends have been in Rikers. It's a terrible place. The violence in Rikers is through the roof. We need to close that facility. We need to close it sooner than later and open up local facilities and make it safer for people who are there. But more importantly than that, in the criminal justice reform, we have a bail system that's broken. It is affecting Black and Latino children at higher rates than white children and white adults. And we need to reform bail. We need to reform bail bond systems. We need to talk about how people are being incarcerated in the system because race and class, and we are ignoring those issues. The MTA, I actually feel like we need to have an accessible L train line. People know the First Avenue exit for the L train is the only exit. It is crowded, it's not accessible. That's why they're building an entrance on Avenue A. Not only do we need to have an entrance on Avenue A and making that accessible, the entire L train should become accessible because people with disabilities live in our city. They live in different stops and they live in different stations, and we need to make sure that the subway system is accessible to everyone. Just on the issue, I want to talk about affordable
Lastly,
housing.
please, yes.
Yeah, just on affordable housing, we need to change the rent stabilization laws. We need to strengthen laws. We need to talk about MCI, major capital improvement reform. We need to talk about reforming preferential rents and making sure tenants are protected. We need to talk about vacancy bonuses that landlords shouldn't be getting. And on public housing, we need to have a state commitment to our public housing dollars, on capital dollars, the $30 billion need for public housing in New York City. We need to talk about how we can really start funding public housing so people don't live in degraded conditions. People can get the repairs that they need, and people can get the service that they need. Right now, the state has underfunded public housing in its capital needs, and we need to change that.
Thank you.
want to
We'll
respond to
come back to you in just 1 minute. I'm going to give Ms. Craig Williams a chance to talk about a couple of policy proposals, then we'll come back to you, Ms. Pagan.
I also want to talk about closed Rikers. I think we need to close Rikers as soon as possible, end cash bail. Most people on Rikers haven't even committed a crime, which is beside the point. They shouldn't. Yes, they're disproportionately affecting poor Latino, Black people, and they're just waiting for trial. They get pressured into taking plea bargains, and then they're in the system. But yeah, so 100% close Rikers, close it yesterday, free them all, and cash bail. And also regarding criminal justice reform, the number one thing we can do is fund public education. If we have, our schools had, really great after-school programs, if everyone was getting an education and felt like they were valued, people who can't afford to have a lot of books at home, if they had beautiful libraries, I mean, that's how we prevent crime, especially crime that is about poverty. It's not about being a bad person. It's about not having access to the things that people in power take for granted. And yes, for doing that, I would propose, drastically cutting the NYPD budget and drastically raising the NYCHA budget.
Okay.
Like, kind of flip them.
Thank you. Mr. Pagan, you mentioned some criminal justice reform activity, but
I want to touch upon Nydia Velazquez in regard to NYCHA developments. Nydia Velazquez, all right, she's pushing the RAD. You're familiar with RAD, of course, right? The rental agreement, a demonstration, actually an experiment. Okay, she raised the cap from 15,000 units to be experimented with to 455,000 units. Okay, to experiment with, she's actually experimenting with 455,000 families who live in NYCHA. Recent audit done by the feds show that RAD does not guarantee affordability. In fact, what it's doing is, it's doing exactly what I mentioned before. It's allowing private developers to come in, take over. She is using Section 8 to squeeze in the private developers. It's a scheme. It's a predatory scheme, all right? And it's affecting the poor people. The ones that are going to get hurt are the poor and those on fixed incomes, including the elderly who are the majority on fixed incomes. In regard to closing Rikers Island, I worked in the state prison system for years, all right? One of the prisons I worked with was Sing Sing, a maximum security prison. 90% of the inmates that are in Sing Sing, a maximum security prison, came from Rikers Island. They're there for murder, rape, sodomy, assault, serious crimes, okay? So, not everybody in Rikers Island is innocent. That's number one. Number two, they should, all right, let me use an example.
Mid-Orange State Prison. I'm going to need you to wrap up, please.
Okay, Mid-Orange State Prison was recognized as one of the well-running, practically no violence prisons in New York State, a state study proved. They should emulate what the construction and the management style of Mid-Orange State Prison and apply that to Rikers Island. Believe me, that would work.
Okay. Mr. Cooper, you wanted to make a point, I believe, on either Rikers or something else. I saw you flagging.
Yeah, because I'm hearing closing. Here's the question. Where are you going to put them? where are you going to put these people? Okay, where are you going to put all of these people who are offenders? Okay, Rikers Island needs to stay open. Now, I am not for closing Rikers Island. It needs to stay there. There's a reason why Rikers Island is Rikers Island. Okay.
Okay.
And that's it.
So I know that the city has an outline of a plan. There's obviously some state jurisdictional issues and oversight that comes into play.
Yeah.
But let's return to some state
but
legislative.
Mayor de Blasio, he's like, okay, you can't just force people to accept these these prisoners in these new jails. You got to talk to the people. You got to let them know what's going on. Okay, you can't just close a prison, then all of a sudden, hey guys, we got new prison here, new prison. Come on now. This is about public safety. This is about law enforcement.
Understood. Okay. So I've heard a few things mentioned that relate to the state legislature and the state budget. There was recently a new budget passed that kicked in for the April 1st start to the new fiscal year. I want to give everybody a chance. I know bail reform that a couple folks have mentioned was one of the things that did not make it into the budget that many Democrats and advocates were pushing for, so we've sort of heard that. Rent regulations, not so much this budget, but will be coming up again, has been dealt with before. But I want to give everybody a chance to evaluate the state budget that was just passed and talk about anything that you think either was good about it, was bad about it, missed opportunities, things that you'd want to pursue in the future. And for folks not that familiar at home, the state budget is often where a lot of new policy gets decided as well. It's not just a spending plan. It's also very often where policy items are decided, and then the funding attached gets decided as well. There still is the legislative session in Albany in the next few months, so again, you're welcome to talk about things that you would like to pursue when you get up there. You obviously, if you are victorious here, you've missed the state budget, but I want to give everybody a chance to weigh in, and we're going to start with Mr. Epstein here.
Yeah. Thank you about the question around the state budget and what was in and what was not in. I think the things that were in was the tax reform. As we know, the president passed a tax bill last year that really affected blue states like New York. It would be really horrible for millions of New Yorkers. I think they fixed it in the state budget. Well, hopefully it'll be able to be a fix, so I think that's a positive thing. Things that didn't happen is the early voting. New York is one of the lowest states in the country on voter turnout. We have no early voting system. We really need an early voting system. That fell off the table this year, unfortunately. We need to figure out if we can get that done in this legislative session. Other things, bail reform, I think we need to talk about that because it's a bail, and the bail system is a race and class system, and we should just acknowledge that's how it works, and we need to reform that. The rent laws, as you mentioned, may be up for renewal for next year, but the hope is we can get something done in this legislative session around preferential rents, vacancy bonus, or MCI reform. I think those are real potentials for this year as well. I'm really hopeful around those things that can happen. And I think bottom line is, while we have some conversations around fixing the MTA, what we really need to do is talk about funding the rich. Millionaire and billionaire taxes to fund public transportation. We're talking about congestion pricing as a tool, and there were some things that were passed in the budget around that, just around for hire cabs. There's a longer conversation around congestion pricing, which I think we need to have, but we need to talk about taxing people who can afford it, and we're not doing that right now in New York, and I think we need to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Craig Williams, your evaluation of the recently passed state budget.
Yes, I mean, I agree with most of what Mr. Epstein said. Cuomo likes to pretend that he's a progressive, so he can talk about all the things that he pushed for in the budget. And yeah, early voting seems like a no-brainer. That shouldn't have fallen out. And bail reform, yeah, it's absolutely among the cruelest things that we do. Most people at Rikers Island are waiting for trial because they can't pay bail. They are not convicted criminals. Despite the fact that convicted criminals are anyway not representative of actual crime, I agree we should tax the rich to pay for more things. And if I got elected, that would represent a great sea change in politics to have a green representative. So yes, I would do a lot.
Mr. Pagan, your evaluation of the budget?
Yes, I've lived 50 years in NYCHA development, still live there. I just celebrated 50 years last February. Cuomo Cuomo received a lot of criticism from what I heard out there in regard to the $250 million that in the budget he's given to NYCHA. And I agree with Cuomo what he's doing. He's smart. He knows what he's doing because what I see him doing, he doesn't want to abet the profligacy of NYCHA. NYCHA does not have moral restraints on how to spend their money. They are wasteful. They mismanage. They misappropriate money. I could give you details, but I can give them to you later because I've lived in NYCHA for 50 years. I've been enduring it and seeing it with my own eyes. I'm a victim of it. So I see what's going on. And an independent monitor is so important. All right, so let's give NYCHA $250 million and let an independent monitor watch how they spend this money because they have been so wasteful in all these years and so many years of not properly maintaining the NYCHA developments, especially right here in our district.
So I hear you saying that you
Yes.
like what's in the state budget related to NYCHA. You approve of the governor's executive order that
Yes.
accompanied it. Anything, just briefly, 10 seconds, anything you feel like did not make it into the state budget that you're disappointed by?
Okay. That I'm disappointed by? Well, the bail bond issue, I'm glad it didn't pass because it has to be examined carefully. You just can't say, I understand, when I've worked in the prison system, blacks and Latinos and blacks. That's all I see coming into the system. We have to go deeper to the root of the problem. All right, the bail bond issue, you're putting a Band-Aid on a compound fracture. We don't want Band-Aids on a compound fracture. We want to repair that compound fracture, put a cast on it, and let it heal.
Thank you. Okay. Got it. Mr. Cooper, the state budget.
Okay, let's just get one thing clear here. Taxing the rich is not going to work. Not going to happen, never will. Okay, so you can throw that out the window because there's no way in the world that I'm going to back it, and I'm pretty sure the assemblymen and the Senate, they're not going to do it either because we need wealthy people in our state. That's how we pay taxes. That's how, this is how business is done. Wall Street and the whole 9 yards. So we need these people, because without that, we wouldn't have a state budget, okay? And as far as bail reform and things like that, now Again, I agree with Mr. Pagan about let's just be careful with this because every person has a different issue, okay, regarding bail, regarding what, crime is committed and things like that. So bail is an individual issue, so we can't just do it across the board. It has to be examined, okay? And secondly, about NYCHA budget, the money is there. The money has always been there. It's the leadership, okay? That's the problem. The problem is the leadership from the city all the way to Albany. So we need to reevaluate the leadership of who's handling the money. If you want to reform that, let's open up the books. Let's find out where all the money is allocated. Let's find out what's going on from that's just not just my district, but all the boroughs.
So we're in our last couple rounds of questions here for the debate, and thank you for your participation thus far. We're going to start with you, Ms. Craig Williams, here on this question. The district is obviously on, much of it is on the coastline, and there are issues around storm protection. What would you do, what would you pursue around resiliency, around storm protection, if you are elected to the State Assembly?
Well, for one, like funding NYCHA, giving more funding for actual resilience, planning for like the basement, the first floor, because even if there's storm protection, the floods will come up again. So we need to study and learn from, say, the Netherlands, what to do when your building gets flooded so that you can prevent the kind of things that happened during Sandy when we didn't have power for 10 days. And just, we need to do it now and soon, and,
I'm going to stop you there because we do want to get to closing statements after this round. So, Mr. Pagan, something you do about sustainability and flood protection?
Yes, I would certainly do my best to give it all the funding that it needs. Of course, it should be overseen. A couple of weeks ago, I did attend a meeting where the people who are actually designing and are going to build the project along the East River, where I live. I look out my window, I see the East River. In fact, I saw the East River come over. What an experience. Well, I never saw anything like that in my life. But the point I want to make is that I will fully fund it. I saw the plans that they're doing, outstanding plans. In the meeting, though, there were the people that were like, well, it looks ugly. What are you going to do about aesthetics? And I'm like, I saw these, cement and steel. I mean, true, they do look like the strongholds that the Nazis built in France during the occupation, right? But it looks like a plan that is going to work to prevent the East River from flooding us again. From what I saw, it's a beautiful plan.
And you want to make sure
and I
it
will
gets
fund
funded.
it.
Thank you.
I will fund it.
Mr. Cooper?
Well, being a member of CERT Team, Community Emergency Response Team, CERT Team 3, we are working with CERT Team 6, which is Peter Cooper Stuytown, about education. What we're going to do in the summertime is we do a little street fairs about being prepared, getting go bags, what to do, where to meet, emergency rations and things like that. Because we want people to be educated on, unfortunately, again, we're going to have another hurricane, superstorms and things like that. It's about evacuation, how to properly get people together and properly evacuate their homes. Now, as far as the walls and everything else, that's the Army Corps of Engineers, okay? I will be commissioning the Army Corps of Engineers because they're masters of this. So what we do is commission them along with the state emergency management and the coordinates with county emergency management to figure out how to handle that, not just our district, but all the way down to financial district, all the way down to the west side. So we talk about an entire island here.
Sure, understood. Thank you. And Mr. Epstein?
Yeah, on the resiliency question, I think we need to talk about flood protection, and I think the walls are important. I think we shouldn't sacrifice things that we have, like the Asher Levy Playground shouldn't be divided in half just because they don't want to spend a little more money to go around it. I think we need to talk about how the bridges and how people are going to access the East River for most of the year and making sure that the flood protection also is usable. We need to talk about using environmentally sound material. We need to talk about green material. And we need to talk about expanding opportunities for solar in New York City as well as other alternative sources of energy. So long-term sustainability is on our table.
Thank you. And actually, we'll just keep going in that same direction for closing statements. We'll start with you, Ms. Craig Williams.
Okay. Thank you very much for hosting it, and thank you everyone else for participating. My name is Adrienne Craig Williams. I'm the Green Party candidate. I'm, the most progressive person in the race. I will fight for you and your families, and even if you don't have a lot of money, even if you don't have any documents, even if you're from another country, even if you can't vote. So, thanks for your support.
Thank you. Mr. Pagan.
I'm running for office to tackle all these issues and more, but the primary reason why I'm running for office is to give the people the opportunity to choose their candidate, the one they want to represent them. I'm talking about electoral reform right from the local level. We don't need party leaders choosing for us. We don't need 17 people of a committee to choose the elected official to represent you. We need everyone, not just the registered Democrats, the Republicans, the Green Party, the Working Families, the Reform Party, who I thank greatly, who put me in this position to be here. I'm a Democrat. It's really a face-off between me and this guy here, two Democrats, because really, throughout the history, in all my life, Republicans never won, let alone third-party candidates. It's always a battle between the Democrats. And this contaminated Democrats that we have now, which I'm so ashamed of because I'm a Democrat, okay? The point I'm making is the people deserve to choose their candidate.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper.
Well, I am a Republican, proud to be a Republican. I have been with the Republican Party for going on now 18 years, and I've been a Republican leader for 14 years. And I'm running in this race because I am the alternative. I want people to say, hey, okay, enough of this Democratic battle stuff is going on. Let's go with the alternative, okay? I ran against Brian Kavanaugh. I would like to replace him, a Brian replacing another Brian. And I want people to prosper. I want people to have choices, school choices, public safety choices. Just choices just to, live their lives in the better. And, I'm pro-police. I am pro-law enforcement. I'm pro-business. I'm for lower taxes, and I'm just making people, I want people to make as much money as possible because I want their families to prosper. I want them to feel good about themselves, and I want them to be educated about themselves.
Thank you. And Mr. Epstein with the final closing statement.
First, I want to thank you for moderating this debate. It's been really helpful to have a lot of issues exposed here. I've lived in this community for decades. I've raised my children in the community. I've worked hard as a parent leader, as a community leader, as an activist to make the difference in the lives of New Yorkers. And my hope is by being sent to the Assembly, being sent to Albany, I'll be able to talk about my progressive values, get things done, organize, bring people together to make the difference for the lives of regular New Yorkers who are struggling. Every day they're struggling. I saw it when I sat on the Rent Guidelines Board, where thousands of people said, oh, even a 1% increase in my rent might mean I would be evicted. Seeing people put into homeless shelters, seeing people not surviving. It is our job to understand the issues of New Yorkers and go to Albany and make a difference for them. I hope I've earned your support today. Thank you.
I want to thank the candidates for participating in today's debate. Again, the special election for the 74th Assembly District is being held April 24th, a Tuesday. You do need to be registered to vote to participate, and you must live within the State Assembly District. For more information about voting, locating your poll site, and all the candidates, you can visit the League of Women Voters website at lwvnyc.org, gothamgazette.com, or mnn.org. Thank you for watching Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Goodbye.